Throughout the years, the Skid Factory's seen some pretty badass cars, from low-powered Sunday cruisers all the way through to high-powered four-wheel drives. When it comes to performance cars, there hasn't really been a box that hasn't quite been ticked. Maybe not a jet ski powered car. This thing is no exception. It's a 1983 Chevy Malibu, otherwise known, well, it was previously known as Malibu Stacey. This car has got an awesome history. It is a Malibu, it's from the States, left-hand drive. This car was originally owned, if I'm getting this right, and maybe Dan can comment and let us know, originally owned by the Forestry, I'm not too sure where, and then our mate Dan Nissen bought the car to compete in Dragweek. So I believe it had like a 500Q big block in there. Dan did Dragweek in 2017, and the good guy that Dan is, he actually auctioned the car off at the end of 2017 Dragweek, and all the proceeds that the vehicle, when it was sold, raised, went to Scotty from Street Machine's son, Alex. So the funds went to a great cause, and the car then ended up into Haig's hands. If you're on the internet in the drag racing scene, you might know Harry. He is a awesome bloke, and Harry and Robby Abbott actually had a bit of a partnership thing going on with this thing. They Robby built an engine and then got a gearbox together, and they put this vehicle together to race. The plan was Robby to race it in 2018, and then Harry's son Corty was going to race it in 2019. There was a couple of things with customs that got held up, so Robby built, I think it was a 565Q big block for it in Australia to then send it over to the States and put in the car. It got held up in customs. They ended up putting a 396 in it for 2018. 2019 rolled around, and then they put the 565 in there, and then 2019 both Robby Abbott and Corty raced the car in 2019 at Dragweek. After Dragweek finished, the car, I'm not really too sure what happened to it, but my mate Mark from Outcast Automotive ended up buying the car and shipping it back over from the States, and now this is officially known as the Burrito Bus. Mark is the resident gearbox builder here on the coast. He's an awesome bloke, and he's built some badass cars. One of the cars I featured on the channel in the past was his Tirana hatchback. That thing is an absolute weapon. It's like he had a goal of making, over 1,000 horsepower and racing a car for a bit of a low budget thing, I suppose you call it, when it comes to performance stuff. Now, that car's badass. It's super fast. It was never destined to be a race car. It was always a street car, then with the modifications thrown at it. But this car for Mark is an opportunity for Mark to build a race car from the get-go that Mark can competitively race in a bunch of different categories. So the car is being built for, Mark loves his no prep stuff, so no prep would be one thing, but then he wants to be able to also do stuff like Jamboree and Kenda and roll racing and drag and drive. Like he wants a car that can kind of do it all. I know that's a lot to ask for in a car, but that's what the car's been built for. So there's been a bunch of legends that have done so much work on this car. Once again, I'm the blister rocking up at the end to kind of take advantage of everyone and make some content out of the car. But it is pretty well complete for the most part. Mark is the kind of guy that he gives so much to everyone. He's helped out so many people on the coast, including myself. And I kind of spoke to him one day and said, "What's going on with the car? Do you want a hand finishing it off?" And that's why it's here at the Skid Factory, so that I can repay the favour for Mark. Hopefully by the time it leaves here, it's kind of going to be running, driving, and ready to hit the dyno with Kai, ready to race on the track. So this is a 598 cubic inch big block Chev. It's a dart block with 4-bolt mains. Ryan from Elite Fabworks has done, I believe, majority of the fabrication. At least you can see which welds Mark has done. Ryan's done a bunch of awesome work, the catch can, or the intercooler piping. It's got twin 88mm turbos, so massive turbos for a massive engine. This thing's definitely going to make some steam. Moving down the line, we've got an Outcast Automotive Special Turbo 400. I'm not too sure what Mark has done to that gearbox, but I know it's going to be good. That's got a PTC converter. Down further, a 35 spline 9-inch diff. That diff, I believe, was the original diff that came with the car from the States, as well as all the roll cage fabrication. I believe none of that's changed, but Mark has then worked with our mate Matt from Rogan Industries, has done a bunch of chassis work on the car. So from the front, it's now got a steering rack, steering box is thrown in the bin, steering rack conversion. We've got some custom control arms. Matt's added chassis connectors throughout, all the way down to the upper control arms, and as well as now has an anti-roll bar. Matt has also tubbed the car and it can fit a 325 tyre on the rear. Engine management wise, we've got a Haltech Nexus R5, we've got the IC7 dash, CAN keypad, TCA8 thermocouple, IGN 1A coil, so pretty well the whole, not the whole Haltech catalogue, but a lot of it, as well as a bunch of sensors throughout the engine to have the data that this car will need to race on the track. This has been wired by our mate Timmy from Crimp My Ride. Timmy's our mate, he's been on the channel before, he helped us wire with Al's Crown, and basically Mark and Timmy worked together to come up with a big game plan as to what this car is going to be used for, what it needs, and the Nexus R5 was a perfect ECU for that. We've got headlights, tail lights, horn, everything works on the car, all controlled by the Nexus R5. The IC7 dash may be getting upgraded. Haltech have just released the UC10 dash. Well, as of when we're filming this, they've just released the pre-order. I believe the first pre-order is already sold out, so you're going to have to get your name on the second one. And that's basically the new 10-inch display, which would look perfect in this application. But seeing as we've already got the IC7, I think you might just roll with what we've got. So pretty well for the most part. The car is wired, all the hard plumbing's been done, and my job is to pretty well, yeah, by the time I'm finished with this car, it should be running and driving, and we can get it out the door, back into Mark's hand. Mark will be coming around to give me a hand. It's the kind of thing I said, hey, I'm going to hook in, and we're going to spend some days and get this car on the road. It's well deserved for Mark, and to be honest, it's been here for a while and I want my hoist back. So there's some history on the car. This is what we're working with. Now I suppose we just got to hook in, get some work done, and get a weekly episode out for you guys. Throw my hands around in the air and point at stuff.
It's pretty cool to be working on such an awesome car with a history that I'm familiar with. I was very lucky to attend Dragweek in 2018 and 2019 with my mate Benny in his Barra-powered Cresta, and we spent a lot of time hanging out with Robby, who was piloting the car. The Burrito Bus has changed a lot since then, and I'm excited to see this badass G-body back on the road.
The wastegates Mark had fitted to the car originally were from an overseas supplier, and being that this thing's going to make a bunch of horsepower, I just said to Mark, let's not take any risks. We work with Go Fast bits, so let's use some quality gates. I've got two EX50s, so two 50mm gates to go on the manifolds. The flanges on the manifolds were different, so they've had to be removed. Now I've just got to unbox the EX50s, get the flange out, weld it onto the manifolds, and hopefully not upset Ryan for chopping off his beautiful welds. Sorry, mate. bolted the manifolds back on the car just to make sure everything was going to line up, and they do line up perfectly after a bit of a tweak, so that's all good. Now I'm going to finish welding them. I am going to leave the gate bolted onto the flange just to reduce any warpage of the flange. I have actually distorted one of these flanges before, so just going to TIG this along, and then once that's done, let it cool down, bolt them back on the car, and hopefully they never have to come back off. Next on the to-do list is to change the radiator pipes. These are beautiful, they definitely work. Silicon's not going to be a worry, but in the instance that there is a catastrophic engine failure, this joint off the bottom of the water pump, the 90-degree bend, is most likely going to be the weak point, and it can split, and liquid underneath the car when you're doing high speed is not a fun time. So I'm going to change these out for some Dash 20 fittings because I have some Dash 20 AN stuff. Got some weld-ons. I've removed the electric water pump, took out the fitting from the bottom of the pump, and now just going to chop this up, chop that up, make something work, make it all clear the fuel pump down here. So this is the biggest clashing point, so I just got to kind of come out of the water pump in a 90 or a 45, whatever I can work out will work. So to roll with that, get the job done. I'm using the wrong filler wire too. Should be using 4043 for that cast, but it's not really cast.
When it's Saturday night, you're getting it done.
Yeah, I reckon it's gonna leak everywhere.
See.
So this Dash 20 hose was originally, we got it for Al's Crown back in the day, and we actually didn't use it. This is 5 meters, and the hardest thing when you're working with the bigger hose is it doesn't love to bend apart from in its natural curve. So yeah, it can bend this way, but it won't like bending the other way. So you kind of have to have the fittings facing the right way. So that's why I've got a bit of funky angles on there, but this will work. I just need to order one straight for the top outlet off the engine, or inlet as it would be. But I don't like that cast inlet. It didn't weld right. It's got a few little pinholes from the dirty metal, so we'll see how it goes. If it leaks, I'm sure someone probably makes a billet adapter anyway. Everything, it's a big block. It's very well supported. I'm sure someone makes billet stuff for it. We'll just use that instead. But if it doesn't leak and it works, then it stays like that. Please don't tease me about my shit welds.
We got that driveway warranty here, don't we?
That driveway warranty, yeah. Good trap remix out of that.
You could, eh? Like an EDM stem.
Pro tip, take your time with these bigger fittings. Don't do what I'm doing here and start it with a spanner, because you can cross thread the fitting and you'll end up having a bad time like I did. You can repair the threads, but it is time consuming and annoying, so best to just take it easy and don't strip the fitting in the first place.
And cross thread this one.
I'm waiting on one more dash 20 fitting, which is a straight off the inlet here, but I'm really stoked with how that turned out. It is a lot better than using the silicone joiners. I've got to give credit to Ryan at Elite Fab. He's done a lot of fabrication on this car, as well as Mark and everyone. This car has had a lot of work done on it, and Ryan has made these flash pipes. They definitely would have done the job perfectly fine, but Mark has actually lifted a head on his hatch, put water under the tyres and put it into the wall. It's a really bad time, and I just said to him, let's not have that happen again. So let's use some AN stuff. This dash 20 stuff is never going to burst. The pressure that this stuff can withhold is crazy. So waiting on that one more fitting, then I can make the top hose. But now, because Geordie's here, we're going to put the turbos on because they weigh like 30 kilos, and putting them on by yourself was a bad time. So we'll get those on and then start plumbing the rest of the stuff. There's so much plumbing to get done on this car, but luckily I enjoy it. So just kind of figure out what's next and then tick the box off. Set the goal, finish the goal, go home and drink a lemon squash. Done.
Pew pew.
Oh, cool.
Where's the bolts? You gotta get the bolts, bro.
Oh shit.
Oh my goodness. That's bad.
I meant to be repaying the favour and working on the car for you, but instead I just rope you into working on your own car. How you doing, man?
Loving life, mate.
Loving life, that's good. So we actually got the turbos back off this morning because I was meant to add in a pressure port for EMAP, and so we just quickly drilled and tapped those in. It's just a dash 4 fitting. Those two ports will run to an exhaust manifold pressure sensor. There's only one input, so purely data for testing. We'll test each bank, put it on one bank and chuck it on the other bank. And now I think we're going to start plumbing up a lot of stuff. I've got a bunch of Raceworks fittings I've ordered for this car. There's so much plumbing and everything. I want to plumb everything in AN. I placed a massive order with Raceworks, and this is just some of the fittings we're using. Anything from dash 8 all the way through to your big dash 12 stuff. And I'm also going to be using some hardline, which I haven't done before. So I ordered some hardline and some hardline fittings. Fuel filters, a couple of Pierberg pumps. So there's a bit of a weird dual fuel system going on with this thing. And some brackets. This is just some of it. There's also way more stuff to get ordered. And basically now we just need to kind of pick a place to start plumbing, which I'm not too sure what we're going to do. What do you want to start at, maybe?
I think we start the wastegates and get that sorted first and
Sweet.
work our way down and backwards.
Turns out we don't have all the fittings we need for the wastegates, so we started plumbing the fuel system instead. I'm using 200 series Teflon line, which starts as dash 12 from the mechanical pump and splits into two dash 10 lines up to the fuel rails. Ideally, there should be a filter in between this mechanical pump and the injectors, but I'll address that at a later date.
Last week I released an episode on Mr. Zippy. It was a rear mount Turbo LS Ford Transit van that we built for Super Cheap Auto's Best Performing Oils video. If you haven't seen the video, hit the link in the corner and do yourself a favour, check out the behind the scenes. As part of my video, I did a Tool Pro tool giveaway, so I've picked 3 comments from the comments section. I've got EB-V8, John Barnett, and the 124 CBR. If that's you, please send me an email at sales@theskidfactory.com. And while I'm here, shameless self-plug, we've got some merch in the merch store. I Hate Cars hat and Skid Factory long sleeves on sale. Check them out. Let's keep on hooking into the Burrito Bus. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this yet, but fun fact, I really enjoy plumbing. I've been ticking off all the jobs on the to-do list, and now I'm moving on to plumbing some sensors. So this here is Mark's crankcase pressure sensor.
General rule of thumb is you shouldn't actually mount sensors directly to the engine, as the sensor is very sensitive to vibrations and it can fail. So that's why you use something like this. This is Raceworks 4-port sensor block. They also do a little 2-port. And what we're doing here is basically mounting the sensors to this block, and then we run lines to the necessary components. So here we've got map sensor that'll run to the inlet manifold. Next one, I've got oil pressure, which will run from the back of the block, fuel pressure, and then exhaust manifold pressure, which was these little bad boys here we just tapped in. So it's going to have lines running to here. Yes, I understand it's another point of failure with the lines, but with the sensor data, you don't want a sensor to fail, especially one from, say, map or oil pressure. It's data that the ECU needs to see for safety. So great to give them the best chance of survival as possible. Jobs like these are time consuming, and although you think you've ordered all the parts you need, you do end up having to order more stuff. So with that said, I am waiting on a few crucial fittings which is holding me up. So what I'll do is figure out what I do have and then continue on with those jobs, keep on plumbing.
The exhaust manifold pressure sensor will see some crazy high temperatures, so the plumbing has to be done using hardline. This is just some steel 3/16 brake line that I've got from Raceworks. It's got a little coil at the end of the cylinder head there. That's just to increase the length of the line and cool the exhaust gas that's traveling to the temperature sensor. The steel line gets a double flare, and I'm using some -3 AN nuts to secure it to the exhaust manifold and to the sensor block. I took a little smoko break and let the blokes from A-Vision come and fit a windscreen. Apparently Sedan and Wagon have different windscreens, and when you're in Australia, getting a hold of a Chevy Malibu windscreen isn't the easiest task. So shout out to the guys at A-Vision for getting it sorted.
Time to talk some shit about a few different setups on this car. The first one is boost control. I'm going to assume everyone knows how a wastegate works, but in a nutshell, you've got a valve, a diaphragm, top and bottom pressure ports for that diaphragm. In a conventional sense, you would have the boost pressure acting on those diaphragms to control the boost. Now, these EX50s have a 13 PSI spring fitted from standard. We're going to swap these out for the lowest spring, which is a 7-pound spring, and we're actually not using the boost pressure to control it, we're using artificial air. So in the back of the car, Mark has a compressor fitted. That compressor is going to be supplying air for these wastegates via a series of MAC valves, which in turn can basically give us a huge range of boost control. So we can run anywhere from that 7-pound all the way through to 50-pound if we wanted to. We can tell that compressor to put as much pressure on top of that diaphragm to keep that wastegate shut to create more boost, or we can let it run 7 PSI on that spring all day, every day. This is done with also CO2 control. CO2, the downside is you've obviously got to constantly have that bottle being topped up. So with a compressor mounted in the back, it's supplying that artificial air to those wastegates. I think I've done a pretty good job to explain that, but once we get the car onto the dyno, we can kind of show boost control strategies with Kai. The second thing I want to talk about is the fuel system. We've already done a bit of plumbing. We've got a mechanical pump down here, so it's got an additional tank in the front supplying a mechanical pump that supplies one fuel rail. That is for a race fuel. The other set of rails down the bottom is for a, suppose, 98 octane unleaded everyday driving fuel. So in the back we have 2 fuel tanks, one of which has not been mounted yet. We're about to do that. The other one is a standard tank. So when we get the car up in the air and actually mount this tank now, and then we can start running some fuel pumps, some fuel lines all the way to the front. There's a bunch of pros and cons when it comes to 2 fuel systems. The biggest one being probably that race fuel is super expensive. So the pro of having another fuel tank with everyday pump 98 definitely outweighs the cons. The cons being maybe more load on the electrical system, twice the amount of fuel lines, more shit to go wrong. But in the sense that this is not a daily driver, although Mark probably will drive it a lot, I definitely think that having 2 fuel systems is the way to go.
Mark had this tank made by Ryan at Elite Fab. Originally it actually sat in the spare wheel well, but since then Mark's had some stuff done by Matt at Rogan Fab, and he actually cut the floor out and put in a big sheet panel there. So now I have to come up with an alternative solution for mounting. So another mate, Matt Tomasini, made us up these fancy mounts, which we're then gonna weld to the tank, and somewhere along the lines of that is how this works. It fills from the back, which we're gonna have to make that hole bigger. Again, this wasn't meant to, it's kind of a work in progress, I suppose. You add things on and change things. And this is the standard tank, which will have 98. Helmet cam. Tacked all the brackets in place, just checked it up on the car and it was all good. Now Mark's going to do some wiring and I'm going to lay down some bird poops, and then we'll get it back in the car after it cools down. This fuel neck too was actually just an old Raceworks one from a Raceworks fuel cell that Mark's recycled. He swapped it out for a fuel pump hanger, so you're wondering how they work. It's just got like a ring with some studs and a, I don't know what you call that, Teflon-y rubber O-ring type seal, and a nut and a Teflon washers. And that's what it looks like inside. Ryan's done all the baffling and stuff inside there, so it works out really well. There is a couple of breathers, dash 16 breathers, and then a dash, what's that, dash 8 out from the bottom.
We're running 3 fuel pumps on the car. One of them is a crank-driven mechanical pump. That's being fed by a dash 16 line from a surge tank in the front of the car. That's for the race fuel only. In the back, we're running 2 fuel pumps, which are these Pierberg or TI Automotive, Walbro, whatever you want to call it. So we're mounting these together. These pumps are great. I've got 2 in my crown, very quiet, very high flowing. EFP 485 is the part number for these pumps. I've also got a few mounting solutions. Mark and I spent about an hour trying to suss out where the best location that they can be. We didn't want to put them too far from the tank. Obviously the tank draws from the bottom. Given rule, we were told was maybe 400 to 500 mil maximum above the pickup. You wouldn't want to go that far anyway. I wouldn't want to anyway. So we're going to have it mounted on the floor. It's about 300 mil from the bottom of the tank, so definitely shouldn't draw too much. The mounting system, what we're going to do here is actually mount these pumps like this in this configuration with some filters mounted straight off the pumps. So the way these work is, these just have your general hose tail on the end, but Raceworks make this fancy adapter with an O-ring that works really well. And you can convert this to, this is a dash 10 fitting. So basically from here, I then, this is an AN, it's not an ORB fitting, but I will put an O-ring just on here, and like this, once you tighten everything up, now I've got the filter mounted directly to the pump, and like this is how it's going to run. This is my vision anyway. Hopefully it will work out when it's under the car. Once you get in there with space constraints, it may not work, but in a nutshell, that's pretty well how it's going to mount under the car up the back like this. And then from here we're running, so these are going to run dash 8 lines. One dash 8 line to feed the surge tank in the front for the race fuel, one dash 8 line
which is going to be a deadhead system to feed the fuel rails for the 98 octane fuel. From the surge tank, we're going to run a dash 12 line back to the main tank in the back for the race fuel. The idea of the dash 12 line being way bigger than the feed is that it can return more fuel than it can supply so that you don't pressurise this tank in the front. Another way around that is Mark actually has a level sensor on that surge tank too, so that it can't ever pressurise that tank. We've then got to come up with a big breather system, which is kind of what I'm working through now. I want to do it all right with rollover valves and everything, but we want to have enough flow there for the breather. And being that the tank's mounted kind of high too, it makes it a bit hard. So
Put on video though, and put it in your mouth.
DIY threaded centre punches. Do yourself a favour and make some of these up using the grinder. Super handy for marking out holes that need to be drilled in hard to reach places.
I've run 2 of the 3 fuel lines from the back of the car up. I haven't secured them 100% yet. I'm still waiting on a couple of fittings for the main race fuel tank at the front of the car, so I can't finish the line. But I'm about to run the 3rd line, but I need to mount a fuel pressure regulator before that. So I've got a Go Fast Bits FXD. I've actually got 3 of these for the car, but this one is for the 98 system. So I need to come up with a, oh no, I'm a sticker. Need to come up with a mounting solution for this reg in the back somewhere. This is going to be a deadhead system, so mounting the reg in the back will set the pressure at 4 bar. It returns straight back to the fuel tank, and then we run 1 fuel line up to the rails. So find a spot for this somewhere suitable, out of the way, and then we can run a fuel line from this up to the rails. Remove the sender out of the tank just because I wanted to confirm how the breather / return system works. So it looks like Mark's copper brazed this extension on there. I'm actually not going to use that as the return. Unfortunately, I can't run this as AN. I'm just going to have to run a bit of hose. So a bit of 10mm hose over this, and then run to a push lock fitting up to the reg out the top. So this will kind of sit like that somewhere, I believe it is, and then yeah, just rubber hose. So this will be the only rubber hose on the system. It's kind of going against my word of always, I don't know, once you use one bit of rubber, it's going to be the fail point. This is the return line from the reg. It shouldn't be under a huge amount of pressure. It's at the back of the car. I don't know. It's going to be fine anyway. Rubber hose has been used on cars for many years. So we'll just do that. I'm going to block this off. I need to get it either copper brazed or something like that. And then I think that'll be good. Put the tank back in, make up some more lines, and go from there. Maybe do a line from the reg forward, I think.
Miller's Mobile Auto Electrical saving the day once again, brazing this fuel line up for me when it's knockoff time on a Friday. Thanks, legends. With the fuel sender sealed up, it was just a matter of fitting up the return line and then bolting the fuel tank back into the wagon.
come to a bit of a stalemate with the Malibu. One, because I'm waiting on some fittings, and two, because it is currently Saturday afternoon. That gives me 1 day to edit the video and no family time on the weekend. So I'm going to stop the episode here. So much progress on the Burrito Bus. I'm really stoked. I'm learning a lot as I go. I've done some things on the car that I do want to change in the future. Mark is an easygoing guy. He's kind of like, he's whatever. He just rolls with whatever. He doesn't really care, but there's stuff that I'm not happy with. Things like this fuel filter. So the mechanical fuel pump, we haven't ran a filter post the mechanical pump up to the rails. If there were to be a failure of that mechanical pump, it will potentially damage the injectors. So wanting to run a filter, Raceworks have this filter, which is a long filter. They flow a ridiculous amount of fluid, so it shouldn't be an issue, but the one thing is packaging. So trying to find a spot for this. I've made up a -12 to twin -10 feed from the pump, but I want to put a filter in there. So I'm going to I've ordered some more fittings. I'm going to make something up with this. The little things like this that I want to change, and hopefully next episode we can finish more things off on the car and then hit the key and get this thing running, go for a drive. So thanks for watching another episode of the Mexican Factory. My name's Rodriguez. This is the Burrito Bus. Enjoy the moment, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.
It's been a super busy year and a massive change for the Skid Factory, but I'm really starting to find my feet and feel comfortable with creating weekly content. If you like what you see, please consider hitting the like button, subscribe if you haven't, or share this video to your social medias. It really helps the channel a lot. I want to say thanks to Daniel Vaughan, Matt Dont, Adam Edwards, Stetson Esther, and Brett Taylor. Thanks for supporting the Skid Factory via Patreon. What's for dinner? I'm having roast pork.
That's a good boy. Testing. 1, 2, 3. How we going?
Yep.
Welcome back to the Holyland Mark 2s. Lark 2, M2.
You right?
I'd kind of do rate them, but I don't know. They don't work as best on the iPhone. The quality's not as good, but they're more user-friendly.
Yeah.
There you go. That's the review.
Ergonomic clip-on.
Not sponsored.
No. But you're getting it anyway.
Maybe I can put it on the somewhere like over here on the GF. Sure. Right on. Can you see the left panel?
Yep.
Yeah, sweet. All right.
Hang on, give me a start new clip.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
My name Woody.
My name's Woody.
We do an episode with Woody Chat one day.
What?
Like Toy Story. Woody.
Well, with a Woody actual Toy Story.
Yes.
And the
And wear
boots.
cowboy boots.
Can you please?
Nah, definitely not. No way.
People would.
I've actually got an outfit I wore to Zai's Halloween party a few years ago.
People would 100%.
And then the yellow, flannel, and then a vest over the top. There's a snake in my boot.
Dude.
Nah, no,
One
thanks.
day, can you please do
Not gonna do it.
Don't we know it?
No way.
If you